All right, welcome into the first episode of 2020 of Off the Clock Sports. Brandon Cook and Braedon McNamara is back. Happy New Year, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. Happy New Year to you too. Glad to be here. Ready for 2020. Ready for sports in 2020. Can't wait to get this going. Let's go.
Oh, unbelievable, man. Happy 2020 to you and your family, and we're happy to be doing the first episode of Off the Clock here in the brand new year. And what a show we have today. We got Drew Brees and Tom Brady's future. We got coaching hires around the NFL. But the big story right now is baseball, as Commissioner Rob Manfred has put the hammer down on the Houston Astros for their sign stealing allegations in 2017, and we believe up until as late as this World Series. Two first-round picks, two second-round picks, a $5 million fine. AJ Hinch and Jeff Luhnow suspended 1 year and then fired yesterday by owner Jim Crane during his press conference. Your first reaction to the penalties against the Houston Astros and the firings of both AJ Hinch and Jeff Luhnow?
I can't applaud the MLB commissioner more than I am right now. It's like, just great job. Great job. You needed to do this. Absolutely. Um, Absolutely appropriate punishment for this. If anything, I personally think it could have been harsher, like a lot harsher. They just straight up cheated. Like, they were sign stealing. They knew what pitches were coming before that. You're not allowed to do that. It's in the rules. You're just straight up cheating. And honestly, I'm surprised not that no players were punished in this actually, because they would have all had to participate as well. I don't know if it went through the whole team. I don't know if you could really get that deep into it and figure out specifically which players were a part of it. But at the same time, it's like if they participated in the cheating, like, they have to be punished as well. I like what Houston did in firing both Hinch and their general manager. What is it? Lee
Jeff
Rowan?
Luhnow.
Jeff Luhnow. Sorry, I don't know why I said Lee Rowan. Jeff Luhnow. But uh, like, that's something you need to do. You need to set a standard that you're not going to stand for cheating. Although they probably knew about it. I highly doubt that it
100%.
just didn't go all the way up to the top, and they're just being like, oh, we need to cover our ass now. But um, this is a great job by the MLB. Houston's kind of covering their tracks by firing these two. They don't want anything else to come out. Um, all that being said, the fact that these guys were not banned from baseball completely just goes to show that the Pete Rose suspension for life is just absolutely ridiculous. The guy, Pete Rose, was caught for betting for his team to win. He never bet against his team. That was never proven that he was betting against his team. He was only betting for wins, and the guy's been banned from baseball, period, and will never be in the Hall of Fame. But AJ Hinch is only suspended for a year for legit cheating in games that won him a World Series, and same with the GM. That's a little ridiculous to me. Like, that's the one thing where I think baseball is just like stuck in the mud on this, and that they will never get over this Pete Rose thing. Where you have something like this, which in my opinion is way worse, and I feel like a lot of people are saying the same thing. You just go through Twitter, people are like, Pete Rose bets on his team to win, banned from baseball. AJ Hinch, steals signs from other teams, tells his players what pitches are coming up, wins World Series, suspended 1 year. Like, I don't know how that works, but apparently that's the way MLB wants to roll.
Yeah, well, it's pretty sad too. I mean, you think of guys like Justin Verlander, Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, all guys who I think we would agree all three of them are probably future Hall of Famers when their careers are over. And the one World Series ring that Justin Verlander was able to win, like Justin Verlander was a guy in Detroit. We all wanted to see Justin Verlander win a World Series. That was kind of the thing that cemented his legacy and made him a first ballot Hall of Famer if he wasn't already one. And now we got to look back and say Justin Verlander finally won a World Series, and now we have to connect this story to it and put an asterisk beside his World Series ring. As for what you said about Rob Manfred, I 100% agree with the penalty. I personally think the fine was very heavy but appropriate. I thought a $5 million fine. I mean, I know he's a multi-billionaire like Jim Crane. He's got a lot of money, but a $5 million fine, I think, would show the other owners and try and get the other owners not to stand for cheating if this was ever going on in their organization. I thought the first and second round picks, I know it's a 40-round MLB draft,
Yeah.
and I mean they still have 38 picks in the rest of the draft that they can capitalize on, but the best players out of college and high school are going in the first 60 picks, and now you don't get to pick amongst those players in the next 2 years. That's very significant. AJ Hinch and Jeff Luhnow, only suspended for a year, and I know what you're saying, the Pete Rose suspension, I couldn't agree with you more. I think Pete Rose, if anything, the Cincinnati Reds could have just stepped in and fired him if that's what they really wanted to do. I think banning him from baseball was a little far, and I think having Pete Rose held out of the Hall of Fame, I mean, you bring this up all the time when we talk about the Hall of Fame. If you should be in the Hall of Fame, if you can't tell the story of the sport without that person's name in it, like you say, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens and those guys, you can't tell the story of baseball without those guys in it. And I mean, Pete Rose, when you tell the story of baseball, should be at the start and the end of that story. I mean, he was the all-time hits leader, for God's sake. So, but now with Jeff Luhnow and AJ Hinch, I feel like these guys have essentially been banned for life, in my opinion. I know they were only suspended for a year, and they can't manage in 2020. But they were fired yesterday, and all the owners, they talk, who's going to hire these guys now? Like, who's going to bring A.J. Hinch into their organization after these allegations? I mean, Alex Cora is probably on his way out of Boston in the next month or two, I would think. I think once they investigate him, I mean, the Boston Red Sox are under new management, and their owner's not going to want to stand for this. Is Alex Cora on his way out of Boston in the next month or two after their investigation? As for the Houston Astros players, you bring up a good point. I'm shocked that none of these players had to pay a price or even pay a fine or serve a suspension. Because the Houston Astros, as far as I'm concerned, and you might agree with this, I know they lost Garrett Cole. This is still a team in the AL West that can win that division. And this is still a team that could go through the playoffs and win the World Series. If the Houston Astros win the World Series in 2020 with this roster, they still got Justin Verlander. They still got Zach Greinke. They still got Altuve, Correa, Springer. The list goes on. I mean, if Joe Espada, the bench coach, steps in and takes over this team and they go on to win the World Series, what penalty did these players really pay in the end? Essentially, they just didn't get to draft a top prospect, and they didn't have $5 million that they probably might not have spent anyway, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Like, it seems like a very minimal. It seems like an oversight almost. I'm not sure, like I said, if it was because there is no proof of what specific player was using it, because you can't prove that like the banging of the trash can was specific for that player. Maybe that player decided not to do it and he still hit the ball anyways. I don't know. To me, it's kind of disappointing to see that. Like you said, if they win the World Series next year, it's like, what price did Houston really pay, other than like, here's some picks of guys that you're not going to have for years anyways. You'll be, by the time your guys that are there are done, you'll have your draft picks again. Like, it's like you'll have, like, it's not like Altuve's retiring next year, or Correa, or these guys are all young. Like, it's just like Bregman. Like, it's just like, these guys are all young. Like, they're not old guys. They're in their 20s, their early 30s. Like, it's just like, I don't know. It seemed like a little bit of an oversight to me. But I will say this on the topic, Trevor Bauer, if you go to his Twitter page, he has a hilarious tweet about the Houston Astros. So do yourself a favor and check that out, because that is pretty freaking funny.
Absolutely. And Pete Rose has voiced his displeasure as well.
Yes.
And I mean, we just talked about Pete Rose. I fully agree with him. I think when you talk about these two situations, and Pete Rose being banned for life, like we've said, and AJ Hinch and Jeff Luhnow being suspended, and I fully support. I think they're both, personally, Braden, I think they're both bullshitting us about what they knew and what they didn't know. I mean, You're the manager and you're the general manager. I wouldn't doubt if Jim Crane said, look, I didn't have as much knowledge about the situation as I would have liked, or I didn't know anything. You know what? In Jim Crane's defense, that is very possible, because there's probably stuff that everyone does at work that you don't tell the boss. Yeah. And I wouldn't be shocked that if they didn't report it to Jim Crane that this is what they were doing, there's a chance that he actually didn't really know, or that he knew something was happening, that they were stealing signs, but he didn't realize they were doing it as illegally as they were. Because let's face it, every team steals signs. Guys are on second base, and they see the catcher throwing down 2 or 3, and it's repeatedly a curveball, and then they kind of go like this and say, hey, man, like, curveball's coming, and the hitter's watching that. Every team does that. Now, to steal it from a video room, or to steal it from center field with a camera and relay it back to your dugout, that is in the rules. You cannot do that. I wouldn't be shocked if Jim Crane didn't know that was going on, because he's the owner. He's up in the box. He's not down in the dugout or center field. But how does AJ Hinch not have knowledge of what's going on? He's the damn manager. The banging of the trash cans going on in his dugout. How does Jeff Luhnow, the general manager, who, I mean, this is sports, Braden. I don't know if you realize, the manager or the head coach communicates with the GM quite a bit. They're talking constantly about the roster. I mean, you don't have to say, like, hey, man, check this out. We got this when the Yankees do this or the Red Sox do this or the Dodgers do that this is what's going to happen next. You don't think Jeff Luhnow had some type of knowledge of what was going on? And I mean, I fully support Jim Crane's decision yesterday, the owner of the Astros, to go out and get rid of these two guys. I agree 100% with something he says. He goes, we need to move forward with a clean slate and a new identity, and I fully support that. And like I said, I would not be shocked if AJ Hinch never managed a game in the MLB again. I would not be shocked if Jeff Luhnow never got to be a general manager or president of baseball operations ever again in baseball. And before you go here, I would not be shocked if the same thing goes for Alex Cora very soon.
Yeah.
Now Alex Cora is being investigated by baseball today. Alex Cora was the bench coach. I believe he was kind of the head of this whole operation. And judging by reports, this has not been proven yet. It sounds like the Red Sox might have been doing the same thing in 2018 against the poor Dodgers. I mean, out of a World Series title. And just for the record, I am as big of a baseball fan as you know, and I love this game, and it is very sad for me to see guys like Chris Sale, Justin Verlander, Jose Altuve, and Mookie Betts, all guys who I think are Hall of Famers one day, have to have their only World Series championship go down like this.
Yeah, I agree. It's a shame that this kind of stuff is still going on. AJ Hinch didn't even pull a Bill Belichick and be like, I misinterpreted the rules. Like, it's just like,
I misinterpreted the rules.
Yeah, like, it's just, I don't know, like, you hate to see it, like, you really do, because it takes away from people that, like, deserve it, and, like, to see, like, a team like the Dodgers, like you say, like, twice get possibly screwed over, when it's like, well, if they didn't do what they did, would the Dodgers have won? Like, because in the Red Sox World Series, the Dodgers looked like they were getting just manhandled. Like,
one-sided. Very one-sided.
Yeah, it was very one-sided World Series, and it's just like, well,
5 games, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just like, well, is that because the Red Sox knew every freaking pitch that was coming, or is that because the Red Sox were that good and the Dodgers were just not that great? And then I don't know. It's a shame to see, because now we'll never know.
Yeah, and I mean, that was a historically great Red Sox team, and to see the Houston Astros, and this is another thing about the Astros really quickly, they have religiously, to prove how significant this punishment, not the fine or the suspension, but the draft picks, how have the Houston Astros become so good to this level that they've been in the World Series twice, the ALCS, and won a World Series? They built for the most part through the draft, if not all through the draft. They had to trade guys they drafted to acquire Justin Verlander. Jose Altuve was a draft pick of theirs. George Springer was a draft pick. Carlos Correa. Then they traded more draft picks to get Zach Greinke. They have religiously built this team through the draft to the point now where they're not going to have their 2 picks. This is going to affect their farm system. This is going to affect them having a ton of prospects to make a trade to acquire the next Justin Verlander, to acquire the next Zach Greinke. I mean, as for the Red Sox, they're just loaded. So, I mean, they'll just spend money and build through free agency, which they've drafted as well, a lot of those guys. And I mean, that's how they got Chris Sale, but they bought David Price. They've bought World Series in the past, and I think the Red Sox will continue to do that, and they'll have the money to go out and get another manager. But the Astros have been, I mean, this is kind of how they are built. So it's going to be interesting to see how the MLB punishes the Red Sox. If they punish the Red Sox at all, they might just take out Alex Cora. Who knows? But it's going to be really interesting to see how they punish the Red Sox and what they find from the 2018 Red Sox, and if anything was similar to what was going on with the 2017 Astros with a trash can and a camera in center field. That's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out.
Yeah,